awkward silence looking at each other. Okay, so welcome everyone. If you'll join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll get things started. I pledge. Again, welcome everyone. It's great to see so many smiling faces tonight. This evening we're pleased to recognize 30 outstanding Parkway teachers who have been selected by their peers as their school's Teacher of the Year. Their dedication to students, community spirit, and personal commitment to excellence has earned them this honor. A special thank you to the Parkway Alumni Association for sponsoring the Teacher of the Year program and hosting our little event earlier tonight. The Alumni Association provides monetary awards and crystal apples for the district elementary, middle, and high school Teachers of the Year recipients. In addition, apparently the Board of Education will be recognized tonight. But first, I'd like to welcome Dr. Kevin Beckner, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability, to introduce our 2023 Teachers of the Year.
Well, thank you, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover, to be nominated and ultimately selected by one's peers for Teacher of the Year for outstanding contribution on behalf of our schools and our students is a tremendous honor. And we commend all of these Teacher of the Year recipients tonight. We will begin by recognizing our elementary and early childhood Teachers of the Year. Teachers, when you hear your name, if you would please come on up and start with Dr. Marty and make your way down the end, we would certainly appreciate it. First, from Barrett's Elementary, 5th grade teacher Kim Han. From Belle Reve Elementary, 4th grade teacher Ashley Jelovic. From Carmen Trails Elementary, EL Specialist Donna Volk. From Claymont Elementary, 1st grade teacher Madeline Bush. From Craig Elementary, 1st grade teacher Brooke Prosky. From Early Childhood Preschool teacher Jennifer Cole. From Green Trails Elementary, 5th grade teacher Erin Wolf. From Hannah Woods Elementary, 3rd grade teacher Carolyn Guildhouse. From Henry Elementary, EL Specialist Linda Howard. From Highcroft Ridge, 3rd grade teacher Kathy Galante. From Mason Ridge, kindergarten teacher Anna Friedman. From McKelvey Intermediate, 2nd grade teacher Madison Wilton. From McKelvey Primary, counselor Alicia Roth. From Oak Brook Elementary, 2nd grade teacher Emily Bernstein. From Piermont Elementary, 2nd grade teacher Vericia Pearson. From River Bend, 3rd grade teacher Greg Waller. From Ross Elementary, 3rd grade teacher Julie Roy. From Shenandoah Valley, counselor Ben Ryan. From Sorrento Springs, 3rd grade teacher Tanya Tinarella. And from Wren Hollow, also our elementary teacher of the year, Zora Shields. Congratulations again to all our elementary teachers of the year. Now we'll move to middle school. From Central Middle, social studies teacher and also the middle school teacher of the year, Jeffrey Stevenson. From Northeast Middle, science teacher, Tony Chiodini. From South Middle, special educator, Bev Limekeeler. From Southwest Middle, instructional coach, Joanne Millis. And from West Middle, career and technology education teacher, Eric Glasson. Congratulations again to our middle school teachers of the year, and now we will go to our high schools. From Central High, math teacher, Sarah Reeves. From Fern Ridge, PE and health teacher, Mark Reeder. From North High, math teacher, Matt Alonzo. From South High, both our high school teacher of the year and our Parkway School District teacher of the year, Ann Earhart. And from West High, librarian Lauren Roish. Congratulations again to all of our elementary, middle, and high school teachers of the year.
It's not on. Well, next I'll introduce Dr. Marty. We're back.
You're not going to stay standing, huh? Once again, teachers of the year, congratulations. We're so very proud of you. This is one of the highlight nights and board meetings of the school year. So another round of applause for our well, please excuse my voice, but I think it's important for me to spend a little time tonight for our board. This is School Board Recognition Month. And we have, as you know, a wonderful board here in Parkway. So allow me, and I'll do my best to get through this. The Board of Education membership is one of the prime examples of service and servant leadership, and is at the core of democratic principles of our country. Members serve without compensation and annually put in hundreds of service hours on behalf of students, educators, families, and the larger community. They probably don't realize this, but I think when we sit down and think about the hours, it's 100, maybe a couple hundred hours. I've had the opportunity to work in 6 school districts in my career, so I've literally worked with hundreds of approximately 100 school board members. Without hesitation, this board and others I've had the pleasure to work with here in Parkway are above the rest in so many ways. Please don't tell that to my friends back in Wisconsin, but Parkway has had a wonderful tradition of strong boards. Why would I say this? What makes this board so outstanding? Their focus on students, their academic, social, mental health, and future needs are all taken into consideration in the decisions this board makes. Their service to the community and their diligent stewardship of taxpayer and the needs of the community as a whole. Their collaboration with one another, district administrators, teachers, and all of the staff that they oversee. I will tell you that talking to my peers, this board during the last several years during the pandemic served all of us very well as they were patient, understanding, listened, and I think did what was best for students, the community as a whole. Their professionalism and their conduct, they care and listen and represent our district and our community with distinction. They respect all stakeholders and follow up with communications and questions for any stakeholder who speaks at board meetings or who questions or sends information to them. Their unselfishness and willingness to put in the time to complete tasks and meeting agendas. They get a lot of homework. Every week they get a large packet and they have to put in some time to prepare for meetings like tonight. And finally, their recognition of the wild diversity of Parkway, its families, our 80-plus languages that are spoken here, and the cultures and various religions and faiths we have here in Parkway. They represent all of them. So for my team, the Parkway School District employees, our students, and the community at large, I want us to recognize our board and thank them for their diligent and outstanding service to each of us, not only to the administrators, but to all of us here in the community. We can be very, very proud that we have a board that understands and works hard on the behalf of a community, students certainly at the core, and continue to work very, very hard each and every meeting, each and every month. Thank you, Board of Education members. Please join me in congratulating our board.
All very much. Thank you, Dr. Marty. And again, our congratulations to all of our teachers. Thank you also to the members of the Teacher of the Year Selection Committee, chaired by Ryan Deckert from Northeast Middle. I know you all enjoy reading all of the nominations, and it's not an easy task to narrow it down to that final selected Teacher of the Year, especially the elementary, the middle school, and the high school, and the district Teacher of the Year. So we appreciate that. Thank you to all of our teachers for attending tonight, your families, your friends, and administrators for joining us for this special recognition. We're honored that you could join us tonight, and at this time we will take a brief break and resume the meeting shortly. We will continue our meeting. So I have a couple of additions, corrections, and/or modifications. Those include 7.01, addendum to agenda item 11.15, approval of personnel items. 7.02, update to agenda item 11.30, approval of graduation contracts. 7.03, update to agenda item 11.13, approval of time and attendance solution. Next up, 8.0 is public comments. It's during this time that we provide an opportunity for citizen comments in an effort to maintain an open and respectful dialogue with our community. The public comment session is not the appropriate forum for addressing individually identifiable student and/or personnel matters. Therefore, due to privacy laws protecting students and employees, comments about these matters should not include personally identifiable information about particular students or employees. Members of the public, staff, and students are encouraged to utilize established policies and procedures for offering suggestions or addressing concerns and complaints prior to bringing the issue before the board. Please be mindful that the meetings of the board, including your comments at the podium, are broadcast and that you are responsible for any public comments you make. In lieu of a public statement, you may choose to submit your comments to the board in writing. Also, due to time constraints and the need to complete the primary responsibilities of our meeting agenda, we cannot respond during the meeting, so you will receive a response from us in writing. We are always available to have an open dialogue outside of our meetings and can be reached by email or phone using the contact information on the Parkway website. Tonight, I believe we have 4 speakers. We will allow each of you to speak for 3 minutes. I will call on the speakers in order that they signed up. And I would just ask that when you come to the podium, you announce your name and your relationship or affiliation to or with Parkway. So first up, we have Marcy Rademeyer.
Good evening, Dr. Marty, Mr. Todd, Ms. Hopper, and other esteemed board members. My name is Marcy Rademeyer, and I'm a teacher at Central Middle, a parent of students at Southwest Middle and South High, and a member of the Parkway National Education Association Executive Committee. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the PNEA Executive Committee about middle school staffing, as our PNEA President, Moira McCracken, was unable to attend tonight. Since finding out about staffing changes in middle school, PNEA leadership has heard from many members in multiple schools. Staff are worried about how these changes will affect students and their schools. According to the PNEA agreement, the Board of Education is committed to the philosophy and practice of transparent, collaborative decision-making. While we understand that staffing decisions are ultimately the purview of the district, we are concerned that these decisions were announced without explanation of the rationale employed in making the changes, and staff had no opportunity to be part of the discussion. We appreciate that the HR department has made an effort to meet with West Middle. However, that happened after the changes were announced, and the staff in other schools have unanswered questions. Article 20 of our PNEA contract states that in order to promote the fullest and most efficient professional collaboration, certified staff and administrators will work together to define an issue, gather information about the issue, and then offer a recommended solution. It is possible that by including staff in this type of process, a more creative solution could be discovered that met the needs of the district and the students while causing less of an increase in team or class sizes. We know that our members would like to be part of the solution to this issue. Most importantly, we know that our members want what is best for students. Thank you for your consideration of these points and increased collaboration moving forward. That's the conclusion of my PNEA official statement, but I would like to explain how this topic has personally affected me. There were some English staffing cuts several years ago, and at Central Middle we used to have 18 English teachers, but now we have 16, which means that teachers, which have included me and other teachers as well, have to teach on 2 teams at the same time. One team last year was across the school from me that I had to teach with, and so I was rarely able to connect with that team of teachers and discuss what our students needed. I was not able to participate in team meetings or field trips. I was not able to attend conferences because they were at the same time as the other team I taught for. It needed to be in 2 places at once. Additionally, this staff reduction now requires that 1 ELA teacher move grade levels every year, which increases stress and frustration. I have timed it, and it takes me 10 hours to grade student essays and creative writing, so even 10 additional students reduces the amount of assignments that I can give and the quality of feedback that I can provide. The decisions to reduce teachers affect students in ways that cannot be seen by those who are not in the classroom, but the impact is significant. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next up is Angela Riley.
Hello, my name is Angela Riley. For the past 10 years, I've worked as an ELA teacher at Southwest Middle School, primarily in the 6th grade. I am also the PNEA representative for my building. In addition, I'm a parent of a kindergartner and a 2nd grader at Carmen Trails Elementary School. I am speaking on behalf of 24 teachers in my building. We wanted to let the board know that we do not support HR's new policy to change the recommended number of students for middle school teams to 130 to 150 students. Simply put, the move is not what is best for students. We have not been given an adequate response from HR as to why the change was given and how it will benefit students and their academic achievement. As the PNA representative for my building, I reached out to HR on Wednesday of last week to ask for clarifications, and we have not received a response to our questions. We question the lack of transparency. At Southwest Middle, the decision to increase team sizes will eliminate a 6th grade team next year. As you are aware, Parkway recently redistricted, and Hannah Woods students now attend Southwest. The redistricting was a decision that excited the staff at my school, and we supported the decision as it was indicated that we'd be adding an additional team. Now, 2 years later, our grade level has added essentially 80 more students, and the only staff we have added was 1 ELA teacher and no other additional classroom support. Our projected enrollment for next year in 6th grade is 275, which will put Southwest at the top end of the board policy guidelines outlined in JCB.G that recommends that the target 5-person teams are 125 and the maximum be 140. We would ask that the board encourage HR to align with previously established board policy. We also wanted the board to be aware of Missouri legislation going into effect at the middle school level in 2024-2025 that will require all students who are 1 grade level behind in reading to receive a personalized reading plan so they will reach grade level. We are deeply concerned as to how this will be developed and implemented with this large amount of students. Post-pandemic reading needs have dramatically increased. By increasing class sizes in ELA, the district is diminishing the capacity for teaching and learning in the workshop model at Southwest Middle. Given the large class sizes, it is physically difficult to establish space for small groups to meet. We hope that the board understands how this decision is going to impact Parkway in the future. Larger class sizes only increase teacher burnout, behavioral issues, and the achievement gap. Transparency needs to be made to staff as to why these changes needed to be made and how staff is going to be reallocated to allow for interventions in reading and math. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next up is Brian Dull.
Good evening. My name is Brian Dull, and I'm the father of 3 boys, 2 of which attend our local Parkway schools, but it's the experience with my other child, who used to attend Parkway schools, that brings me here today. With spring break quickly approaching, many families will be flying to their family destinations, or vacation destinations. What do you think parents would do if there was a 20% chance their plane would crash or experience heavy turbulence? You might ask, what does this have to do with education? I raise this question because that's what 20% of Parkway students experience at their school every day. You see, statistics show that 20% of the population have dyslexia, including William and myself. It can affect people in different ways and make simple tasks like reading and writing difficult. The dyslexic brain has the ability to learn these skills, but the instruction needs to be systematic, phonics-based instruction. Without proper instruction, it can feel like turbulence in a plane, extremely frustrating, hard to understand, terrifying, and difficult to simply read a simple passage from a book. We enrolled William in our Parkway School for kindergarten and trust our educators to teach the basic necessary skills of reading. Unfortunately, the programming techniques used by the staff weren't phonics-based. By the end of 2nd grade, he was still reading at a kindergarten level and was below the 1st percentile of his peers. My wife and I ultimately decided that we didn't want William's educational plane to crash, so we made the difficult decision to pull him and send him to Churchill School and Center, a school that specializes in educating dyslexics. I only wish my story was unique, but we are not alone. There are several families who attend Parkway who've pulled their kids and sent them to Churchill. No family I've ever spoken to ever planned to send their child there. We all have similar stories and struggles with the educational experience at our home schools. But you see, we are the lucky ones. I realize my son's school is at a price point that makes it not available for everyone who needs it. But it doesn't need to be this way. Families shouldn't be forced to pay for private education or pull their child from Parkway simply because they can't read. As the board, you have the power to change all this, set a new direction for Parkway, a district that focuses on reading instruction and a program that works for all readers, not a program that reads approximately 3,400 dyslexic students behind. Please make literacy the main objective of professional development for staff. Even though it's been a few years, I keep thinking about William's second grade school teacher telling us at a parent-teacher conference in second semester. She said she used all these techniques to help William read, yet she was unsuccessful. She felt terrible. She knew she had failed William in his instruction, but it really wasn't her fault. You see, the system failed her too. She was doing what she was simply instructed and trained to do. That's why it's important to educate all the stakeholders about dyslexia, what it is and how it affects students, and ultimately how to educate them. Churchill's offered to provide a dyslexia simulation workshop to the board and administrations interested in attending. It is during the simulation you will experience what it's like to be a dyslexic. It's truly an eye-opening experience for those that are not dyslexic. For those that are, like myself, it's a reminder of the challenge that we face every day because of it. So please do your part so those lifetime challenges don't turn into a future plane crash for those Parkway students and families. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Julie Wyatt.
Good evening. I'm Julie Wyatt, the parent of students at West Middle. And tonight I am representing a group of parents concerned about the issue of dyslexia and how the district can help. We are so appreciative of the commitment that the board and district have shown in listening to the Sold a Story podcast, committing to attending the dyslexia simulation, a parents advisory council for children with disabilities meeting geared towards dyslexia later this month, and also learning more about the curriculums for review by the literacy leadership team. You have not only heard us, but you have acted swiftly to learn more, and we are grateful. The shift towards structured literacy is a positive one, but we must not neglect what is needed to properly deliver new instruction. Teachers need the time and necessary professional development to learn how to explicitly and systematically teach children to read. Structured literacy will change how students in Parkway learn to read, creating the foundation needed to be lifelong learners. This is a pivotal step in literacy for our district, but it cannot happen overnight, so the children benefiting from this change are in the future. What about the children who struggle now or have yet to be identified? Professional development is available at all grade levels and for building administrators to help schools work cohesively together to properly teach students that need explicit reading instruction. It is not too late. As the district designs their professional development for the coming year, we ask for the focus to be on reading. Some of our group recently watched the Right to Read film, which is produced by LeVar Burton. Throughout the film, it is emphasized that literacy is a civil rights issue. As a fundamental skill necessary to succeed in the information age, reading, writing, and literacy should be something every person can do at a proficient level or above. If you cannot read, you cannot access the full benefits of our society. Additionally, I have been reading a book, Undiagnosed, by Amir Baraka, who is dedicated to educating others through his difficult experience of being undiagnosed as a dyslexic. He states, if a teenager or adult cannot read in present-day society, they definitely cannot succeed no matter what they do. When added, social, economic, educational, and geographical inequities are factored into the equation, there's a thumb on the scale. He later states, everything is possible when we create the right circumstances and programs to support kids' growth and development as contributing members of our community. Mr. Baraka was 23 years old and in prison before he was diagnosed with dyslexia. He was able to learn to read, become an actor, author, dyslexia advocate, youth mentor, and prison coach. With the caring staff Parkway has, I feel confident that you can prioritize giving the time and resources needed to ensure all staff members have what they need to improve the reading for all Parkway students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Next, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education as scheduled for March 15th, 2023.
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, April 19th, 2023, beginning at 7 p.m. right here at the Parkway Welcome Center. The annual board organizational meeting will take place at the same evening, beginning at 6:30 p.m. here at the Welcome Center. 7 candidates have filed for the 3 open positions in the Parkway Board of Education. The candidates in order of filing and as their names will appear on the ballot are, and if you're here, you are welcome to stand or wave as I call your name. Jeff Todd, that's me. Ryan Kerr, Kathy Guerrera, Debbie Hopper, Mark Ivancic, Tiffany Mapp Franklin, and Matt Elin. The election is Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. The terms of Deborah Hopper, Tiffany Mapp Franklin, and Jeff Todd expire in April 2023. The League of Women Voters of St. Louis is sponsoring a forum for candidates running for the Parkway Board of Education beginning at 7 p.m. on Monday, March 27th, here at the Parkway Welcome Center. You're all welcome to attend, and I believe it will also be streamed live. Next up, we will move to board and superintendent reports.
All right. First off, thank you for everybody who spoke tonight. Appreciate the comments. For me then, actually lots happened. I don't want to get in all the events because we shared a lot of events over the past month, but I'll just touch on for sure. 6th grade camp with Jeffrey was very much fun last week. It was great getting out there, seeing the kids outdoors. And it was just fun to get away from me too, to be outside and be amongst the students learning. I learned a lot about skulls and fur and shapes of where the eyes are on the skull. So it was a very good time. I learned a lot too, along with the kids. And then also just one of the things too I got a chance to go to was the St. Louis Artists Guilds had a young artist showcase a few weeks ago. And Parkway was very well represented. And I say one of the students actually got a scholarship for their sculpture that they did. So that was really fun to see Parkway out there in the broader community with their art projects. And then I'll just touch on one thing. I think Jeff actually had the opportunity to do one of these too. I was part of a panel through Maryville for a doctorate program with other board members of other districts. And I just kind of say it's board member recognition. Thank you to my fellow board members because we have a good group here. Other challenges out there, other districts, it makes me be grateful for what we have here. Sometimes we lose focus of that being our own little bubble right here, but we have a good group here. We have a great administration, great set of teachers, great set of families and students. So I think sometimes we need to pause and just be grateful for what we have in Parkways and be Parkway proud too at the same time. So I'll stop there.
First off, congrats to all the teachers of the year earlier. That's always wonderful to see. As Matt mentioned, we did go to 6th grade camp. I went to 6th grade camp at Parkway Central and was also a counselor as a junior and senior. So it brought me back and I absolutely had a great time. And the kids were having a great time and all the teachers as well. Something many of my other board members did as well with me, we volunteered at the food pantry later in February, always worthwhile, and for any of you that have a chance to do it, it truly is amazing. Jeff and I attended had a meeting with the West High Advocacy Club, where we talked about college readiness, the college process. Very enlightening. It was six female students who talked about the college admission process and what Parkway could do better, and it was a great conversation. Attended Parkway South Special Olympics, something that I did as a student here in the soccer tournament. This was a basketball tournament at Parkway South. And we all attended the legislative breakfast, which was with Pattonville, Rockwood, and Special School District, where we met with local politicians from the state and local level to discuss education issues. It was very well done. Was glad to see the turnout from the legislative perspective. It was my first one, and it definitely was eye-opening as well. So a lot happened in the past month, and it just keeps going. So.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I'm going to keep my remarks brief this evening. I just wanted to touch on the fact that I'm coming in now towards the end of the first year of my term here on the board, and I enjoy it very, very much, to echo Matt's sentiments about the board. And since I'm still in my first year, there's still segments of the district that I'm exploring and getting out to for the first time. And when I think about this, I think about students all throughout the district, and the life of a student is impacted by academics and extracurricular activities. And a couple of things that I was able to observe this past month, I think encompassed both of them. Earlier in the month, on March 4th, I was able to go to Parkway North and see their spring musical, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Loved it. A diverse set of kids acting out a really fun musical. My family enjoyed it very much. And we'll be looking forward to seeing what they're doing in the fall, I'm sure. And then later, March 11th, we went to Parkway Southwest Middle, that's right, for STEM Fest, a full day of activities dedicated to science, technology, engineering, math. It was staffed largely by student volunteers, and it was just a really fantastic event. And seeing all these things together just continues to encourage me about the great things we've got going on at Parkway. Tiffany.
Thanks, Rob. And my kids went to the STEM Fest and loved it. My son came home with his bag of slime. Thank you, appreciate it. I'm just going to touch on a few other things that were not already touched on. So Monday, I had the honor of attending Northeast Middle's National Junior Honor Society's third induction. I want to thank Dr. Martin for inviting me, and we had 40 inductees, which is amazing. And I also want to I think I heard correctly that he was the one who brought the National Junior Honor Society to Parkway. So now all of our middle schools, starting next year, will have a National Junior Honor Society. So I'm really, yeah, this coming school year, or
This spring, yep.
yeah. Yeah, so that will be great. I'm really, really excited about that. And then last Thursday, I attended our PAMI meeting. It's usually every month. This meeting, we had a guest speaker, Harlan Hodges, who was an amazing speaker. He provided so much history just within the St. Louis region regarding economic disparities and maternal birth and birth stuff like that. I can't think of what the terminology is right now, but he was an amazing speaker, and he actually has a YouTube page that has all of this information on there. He was a really great speaker. I'm really, really proud that PAMI was able to bring him in. I believe he was also a Parkway grad, right? Yeah. So he was also a Parkway grad. And then last Tuesday, we had our Project Parkway Steering Committee meeting, and we talked about, we started really focusing more on the comprehensive school improvement plan, which we're going to talk about tonight. And that is about it for me tonight.
First, I'd like to begin by wishing everyone a happy School Board Recognition Month. It was nice of Matt's daughter to come to celebrate. My daughter didn't show up for School Board Recognition Night. You're the lucky guy. Matt mentioned that 2 weeks ago we had the legislative breakfast, and I want to talk a little bit about that event. We had this event with Parkway, Rockwood, Pattonville, and Special School District, and we invite any legislator whose territory touches any of those districts. And there's a lot of legislators in the room that promote pretty anti-education bills. And everyone sits there and we're all nice to each other. But these folks hide behind words that sound positive, like transparency and rights and choice. But they're supporting legislation that is intended to undermine public education. And, it bothers me, but I was happy to hear the administrators in the room, including Dr. Marty, push back and sort of counter some of the talking points that support these measures. And especially my colleague Debbie asked some very pointed questions. I was really happy to hear asked, because I think it's important to have a voice that represents public education. It sounds like these are things anybody would want: choice and rights and transparency. But there's a whole lot behind those words that isn't positive, and I think it's important for all of us to stand up and against those things, those of us that care deeply about public education, which I assume encompasses pretty much everyone in this room. Anyway, that's on to the nicer part of my month as a school board member. I attended the all-district orchestra concert last night, which is remarkable. There's hundreds of kids performing, including my son, and it was an honor to be there, and it's just really a great night to witness that. STEM Fest was last weekend. My wife and daughter attended, and I would have attended, except that Mizzou played Alabama at the same time. But I'm told it was a wonderful event, and I'm really happy that we have a district that is able to put on those events for the kids.
Outside of everything else there were several things that I had attended as well, but the main thing that I want to communicate tonight is on March the 6th, there was a special school district governing council meeting. And in addition to hearing from their PAC, which is the Parent Advisory Council, the president there gave a very nice report, which is always helpful to the school district so that we can hear directly from the parent advocacy groups as to what services they're in need of, and continuing on with some of their needs and bringing some issues to our attention so that they can be addressed. We also looked at some budget matters, but the big thing that the governing council does is elect the Special School District Board of Education. And there were 3 candidates up for election that evening. In Sub-District 2, which covers Afton, Bayless, Hancock Place, Melville, Dr. Daniel Cuneo, who has served on the Special School District Board of Education for many years, was reelected. He was the incumbent and the only candidate that ran for that position. So he's been reelected. In Subdistrict 7, Dr. Yuval Osner would represent Clayton and Rockwood districts. He was an incumbent, ran unopposed, and was reelected. In Subdistrict 1, this covers Hazelwood, Jennings, Maplewood, Richmond Heights school districts. There were 2 candidates, Stephanie Boykin and Curtis Faulkner. Mr. Faulkner is the current incumbent, and Ms. Boykin was another candidate that ran for that position. After several votes of attempting to select a candidate, there was an impasse, and we were unable to vote on Subdistrict 1 for Board of Education for SSD. So that position now will be reposted. Candidates can apply for anyone who lives in the Hazelwood, Jennings, Maplewood, Richmond Heights school districts can apply for that position through the special school district. And we look forward to hopefully having more candidates perhaps. And then at the June 5th meeting of the Governing Council, we will go through that election process again. So that was the main thing that I wanted to cover this evening.
Thank you. In addition to a lot of those things that we all attended, Jeffrey mentioned the South High Special Olympics. I also attended the West High Special Olympics just a couple of weeks ago, and just an outstanding event, just like South's is in the other schools. It's great to see our students in high school just doing something totally out of the norm for them, and partnering with sometimes a student that's younger, but sometimes a student same age, but with tremendous disabilities in a lot of different areas. And it's always heartwarming to see those students interact. Our high school students interact with these kids, helping them have fun, helping them learn, helping them do all sorts of different activities. Also attended the Trades Day. It's the second annual Trades Day that we have held. Last year, we had 20 or 30 students. This year, we had over 50, and we had, I forget how many different businesses that came in and set up exhibits, not just exhibits, but they had these kids wiring circuits with electricians. They had kids putting together building a brick structure with brick and mortar. They had our high school students welding out in the parking lot, not inside the building. But it's just an amazing opportunity for students who are interested in something other than a traditional college career path that we seem to hear pushed as the norm. And it doesn't have to be the norm for everybody. It's not the norm for everybody. And so I'm happy to see that we continue to offer this the second year in a row, and next year I can only expect it'll be even bigger. Let's see, I did want to mention, it's in our consent agenda, I assume we'll approve it here shortly, but I just want to recognize the Alive Church in De Pere. We get lots of gifts from the public on a regular basis, and almost every month we're approving some gift from some PTO. We have to officially approve the gift to the school, but a lot of times it's, they're giving money to build a bench or to put in a playground piece of equipment or something like that. But the Alive Church congregation got together and they decided they were going to pay off the lunch balances of our students at Carmen Trails, $1,200 plus. And that just, to me, we've had a number of those instances over the last few years as the economy has been, a challenge for a lot of people. And to take that stress off of families just means the world to those families, and it's impressive to the rest of us, and it inspires the rest of us. So thank you to those folks. And then I also want to say congratulations to the winners over the last week of the Pillars of Parkway Albert Awards, Lights of Parkway. These are people that are doing great things in our district, sometimes without anyone even realizing it, but somebody figures it out. We'll honor them next month in a very special ceremony. But one of them is our very own board secretary, Nikki Stover. So congratulations, Nikki. Very well deserved. And that's all I have.
Gosh, I was going to recognize Nikki, but that's all right.
They took most of my stuff, so
I have the pleasure of working with Nikki every day, and well-deserved. Earlier I mentioned how active our board is and the hours they put in. Just amazing, their contributions. And not only are they attending, for example, Tiffany was the keynote speaker at the National Honor Society, and she did a great job. Kevin spoke last night. We got people that actually go to camp and dig in. Rob was playing at STEM Fest. Debbie and Jeff are always constantly involved, engaged, and sometimes asked to speak. So, again, just a really truthfully, again, recognition for all you do. Not only, are you present, but you're very, very active. So thank you so much. I'll just mention a couple of things that I've been able to attend. West had a wonderful musical, and Pippin, and then I also went to the West Middle School, Matilda Jr. on last Saturday night, which was a great performance. And just ongoing, we talked about some of the other performances around the district. I also just want to mention that we continue, and you saw, if you pulled in tonight, you saw, we got a bus here. We're trying to, continually get bus drivers. But, we actually talked this afternoon with some of our employee groups about, we still have needs. And so, if you know people out there that are looking for work, bus driving, custodial work, maintenance, substitute teaching, we certainly have openings here in Parkway, right, Mr. Bogus, Dr. Bogus? What's that? And nurses. That's another group we were talking to. So please, if people you are aware of people, relatives or neighbors, please, we certainly are trying to fill those positions. I think, again, a lot was covered. I do want to say that when you hear us talk about meeting with legislators, and sometimes you'll hear us talk about meeting with other advisory groups, I just want to explain that the district has several groups we meet with. And today, for example, we met with religious leaders in the community, had a wonderful meeting. We meet with communication advisory, government relations, PTOs, who am I missing? Advisories. But just a number of advisories that we meet with to try to be connected to the community. And our meeting today was really an outstanding meeting with our religious leaders. Got some wonderful feedback and cooperation. We have a lot in common with our religious community. We have very common missions, even though, you say, well, it's faith-based, but we're all working on, trying to improve the quality of life in the community. So it's great we can connect with them. Spring break starts Friday. I know that it's kind of the halfway point of the semester. And you know how busy we've been. It's even going to be busier when we get back. So we encourage all of you to rest, including parents and students and staff members, because we have a very, very busy finish to the school year. And we're excited about this school year and the great results we've had. And we have a great opportunity to finish strong here. So, again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is our consent agenda, which is rather healthy this month. We've all had an opportunity to review it. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the March 15th, 2023 board materials?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed?
I need on section 1114, I will need to abstain from that vote.
Okay. So you can do that in just a second, actually. So all in favor of the stated consent agenda?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I will abstain to section 11.14.
Duly noted. All right, motion carries 7-0, except for that item. Next up, we have no action items tonight. However, we do have policy review. That includes 13.01, policy IGBD.BP, at-risk students, and 13.02, policy IGBE.BP, students in foster care. Any board members have any questions for either of these policies? Okay. These policies will be up for approval at the next Board of Education meeting. Next, we have a report. We have some guests. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Seppi, Director of Community Education, to begin the presentation.
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover, congratulations on your award. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I appreciate your time. I know you have a lot on the agenda, so thank you for allowing me some time to come and share what I consider to be a very positive update about all the great things happening in community ed. I appreciate the opportunity to do this each year, so thank you for allowing me to do that. See if I can remember how to work this thing. No, that's not it. Okay, how do I do this? Got it. If it was on, that would have helped. So, sorry about that. Okay, so two things that I hope to accomplish tonight. One is we'll give you the general overview update, annual update regarding community ed, but then secondly, we're excited to share an update with you on conversations that have been happening for several months related to the aquatics programs between Parkway and Rockwood. So with that, I'll just jump right into it. I first want to echo Dr. Marty's comments and thank the board. Congratulations on Board Appreciation Week. I know that in community ed, we can't do what we do without your support. So thank you. This is the 9th year of the community ed partnership between Parkway and Rockwood, and we just appreciate your ongoing support. So thank you so much for that. As we look to, okay, I'm going to try this again. Oh, there it is. Wrong button. Okay, so as we look to community ed, I always like to show this slide each year because Ms. Hopper, I believe you were around back when the partnership started, so thank you for your ongoing support. But this is a slide that we shared when the planning was underway, when we were talking about the why and what do we think we would get out of working together between the two districts. And while I won't read through all of that, what I will say is just those bullet words. We believed that this would be a proactive approach, providing enhanced programs. We felt that it would be fiscally responsible and that it could become a national model. I will tell you that, in fact, all of those things have happened over the last 9 years. And while we get calls regularly throughout the year from other school districts around the country, what's most important to us and all of the staff and community ed is how we're impacting Parkway and Rockwood kids. And we're just so pleased to be able to offer experiences that outside the school day for all residents of the district. Okay, so this is just an overview. Again, I won't read through all this for you, but I'll highlight just a few things. So this is our year in review. As we look back over last year, FY22, you will see that the trend continues to come back post-pandemic. This is just a reminder, when we talk seats filled, we're talking about seats sold, seats filled. That's not unique individuals. So that might be one child who signs up for a venture club and attends the entire year. That's one seat. one child who might sign up for 6 sessions of swim lessons in a row. That's still one child, but they signed up for 6 seats. And so when we look at these numbers, you're looking at just over 44,000 that were filled in FY22. And then just down below there, just a few examples of some of the larger or more visible programs that we offer. The one I'll call attention to is Parkway Adventure Club. We certainly, with the pandemic, had a step back, and you will see that we are continuing to make strides now post-pandemic. However, 2 things are at play, both related to people continuing to have an opportunity to work from home quite a bit. So either fully work from home or partially work from home. And so while we are seeing participants come back to the program, in many cases it's a different schedule than maybe they had before. Maybe it's not 5 days a week, now maybe it's 3 because parents work from home 2 days a week. And so right now, the $1 million question, I know Dr. Marty and I talk about this all the time. We have 900 contracts in Parkway Adventure Club so far this school year. As of today when I left, there are still 154 kids on the wait list. So when we were talking about hiring, let me just put in a shameless plug here for school-age care professionals. As of about a week ago when I spoke with Leanne, who oversees Adventure Club for us, we were still in need of filling over 60 shifts in order to reduce all the wait lists throughout Parkway and Rockwood. So in Parkway, that does translate to 154 students currently on the wait list. Okay, this is one of my favorite slides. Anytime I get a chance to talk to anyone about community ed, I like to say what's happening today. So believe it or not, today in community ed, we are serving over 2,000 participants at over 40 different locations between Parkway and Rockwood. Love this slide because it shows the breadth of age that we serve. So our youngest participant is 11 months old in a swim program, and our oldest participant, believe it or not, is doing an online chair yoga class, 91 years old. So we are very pleased to be able to provide opportunities for residents of all ages. We want to take a minute tonight and spotlight one of our programs, which I think is, I'm not going to call it a hidden gem because they do fantastic work. They are a true gem of what we do in community ed. And before I talk about it, I want to recognize the true gem that leads that program. So Mary Grott is with us tonight in the back of the room there, and she is the director for the Adult Ed Literacy program in community ed. And so just an overview of what that entails. There's a lot of acronyms in Adult Ed Literacy. First, it's AEL, but then we talk about what type of programs do we have. So adult basic and secondary ed and high school equivalency. So think high school equivalency is formerly GED. Adults who are looking to prepare to take their GED. English is a second language, which is a very important service that we offer. Included in English as a second language classes, we also offer citizenship and civics classes that folks can come and take. And then the way that AEL works, it is grant funded at the state and federal level. And so Mary and her team service a large area within St. Louis. And so you'll see the different areas that are represented there. What I will call attention to, the largest percentage of AEL participants actually live within Parkway boundaries. So while we service areas outside of Parkway, the largest percentage of participants live within Parkway boundaries. Mary also reminded me we have more students that we can serve. Another shameless plug for HR. We are always looking for AEL teachers, and of course space is an issue. So we're always in need of more space, and we are always in need of more staff. So currently we have a wait list, if you'll call it that, with our AEL programs. I will also add that the AEL, Mary and her team oversee the Missouri statewide Mo Learns program. So that is essentially the online high school equivalency program. So students who are preparing to take their high school equivalency test. Mary has a team of teachers who service different areas of the state, but that grant runs through AEL, and Mary and her team work with those folks. So some more numbers for you, just so you can kind of see how that breaks down the 3 different program areas that I've been talking about. You can see those numbers have kind of gone up and down over the years. Pandemic obviously had an impact, and then you'll see some of that starting to come back. I do want to call attention to, in July of 2017, the Parkway and Rockwood AEL programs combined into one. Previously, like Community Ed overall, prior to 2014, there were separate Rockwood AEL programs and Parkway AEL programs. Those programs combined in July 2017, and the AEL grants are actually held through Parkway. So Mary and her staff are actually employed through Parkway, which is kind of the one exception with all the rest of Community Ed. Rockwood acts as the fiscal agent for everything except the AEL programs. Oh, one more plug. We're always looking for volunteers in the AL program. Okay, so as we look ahead to next fiscal year and beyond in Community Ed, you'll see several items on the sheet here. Just a couple that I want to call attention to are continuing to focus on addressing our staffing shortages. I've already talked about Adventure Club, but the truth is most every program we have has a staffing need. That is our largest challenge. Of course, Adventure Club is our largest overall challenge, just given the size of the program. But that is something that we continue to work on. You may have seen a couple yard signs in front of schools that say work with kids before and after school. Believe it or not, that is actually our #1 recruiting tool. So when we get new staff, we ask, how did you hear about us? And that is one of the most common ways that they have heard about us, seeing those signs. So you'll probably notice they change color every now and then that's intentional, so that, as we all do, we drive by them, and if it looks the same, I tune it out. So Leanne and her team are out there adjusting those throughout the year. I did want to also mention on that second bullet, as we look ahead to next year, we've come out of the pandemic and we continue to see folks returning to the programs, which is great, but we are monitoring the potential possible recession. We know that in Community Ed, in most cases, for most of our programs, patrons are choosing to spend their discretionary income to participate in these programs. And so we know that if that becomes tighter at home, then that might give pause for considering what they're going to spend their income on. And so that's something that's really important to us. So what we do is work really hard to make sure the programs we're offering are value added, so they're seen as something families want to spend their money on. And then the last thing that I'll mention here in the update before we head to the second piece is that we are continuing with our planning regarding a shared aquatics program. So I mentioned about the AEL programs that combined back in July of 2017, and then of course the partnership, which started back in July of 2014. We have some folks here who are going to help me with this presentation, but what I'll just say before we get into it is, when I look at this as a continuation of the partnership. And so, again, starting from 2014 to the AEL programs in 2017 until where we're at today is now having conversations about a shared aquatics program. So we have some great information to share with you about that tonight. And so I'm going to call up some folks here to help me out. And I'll introduce them. Some of them you're probably familiar with already, but Corey Johnson's going to come up and talk. Corey has been invaluable to me since he started July in this position. He and I have had an opportunity to work together weekly on several things related to Community Ed, but specifically the aquatics. And then we have the current head coaches for both the Parkway and Rockwood swim clubs here. So Chris Etherington, who's the Parkway swim club head coach, and Sean Harrison, who is the Rockwood swim club head coach. The three of them are going to take over for me in just a minute, but I do want to recognize two other folks that are here as well, because when we talk about aquatics, we're really talking about two components. We're talking about the Learn to Swim program, and then we're talking about the swim club program. And so the folks that run the respective Learn to Swim programs for Parkway and Rockwood are here as well. Tyler Cook is here from Parkway, and Lori Stallings is here from Rockwood. So I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to hand this off, and these guys are going to tell you about all the great conversations they've been having. Sorry, Corey. It's that bottom right here.
Okay. Bottom one. Okay. Hey, good evening, Dr. Marty, Mr. Todd, Ms. Hopper, and the entire board. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity to essentially explore this possible partnership with our aquatics program. And as we go through and kind of share what led us to this, I'll basically start with how we got here. And if we go back to the summer, like Mike Seppi mentioned, we kind of had a unique set of circumstances where the Parkway head coach resigned at the same time as the Rockwood head coach announced that he was retiring. So with that, that was a lot of experience from leading both programs that was, basically leaving. So we began to discuss, and those initial discussions were just with Dr. Marty and Mike Seppi and myself with this be an opportunity to possibly explore how we could expand the partnership and provide a better aquatics program and a better aquatics experience for our students in both districts. So that's essentially this summer was just when that opportunity presented itself, and we began to look at that. So with our purpose, essentially then, as same as with any of our programs and all of our programs, is can we enhance this? Can we make it better for our students? And with our aquatics programs, is that providing us an opportunity to grow something and expand something in the aquatics area with working together and bringing the two programs together, and how our process essentially has gone and played out with that is we've met here bi-monthly really since school started, basically with having meetings and just discussing everything that we can think of, and from philosophy to how the programs would look, where their programs, practice facilities, and a lot of the factors that would go into what a combined team would look like, and those factors. And with that, I would like to say, as they get ready to come up, is our head coaches, the head coaches of both teams, and their entire coaching staffs have just been amazing. They've been collaborating in great detail through this process, and their insight and their wisdom and just their firsthand knowledge and experience with the background in the swimming that they brought to the table, and trying to see what is a possible building of the aquatics programs for our students. It's just been invaluable. So I really commend our coaches and of both programs and the work that they've done collaboratively. And essentially at this point, I'll do like Mike. I've talked for probably my 3 minutes, and I will pass this over to the coaches so we can really get a little bit more into the meat and potatoes of what we hope to continue to collaborate and look to accomplish. So I'll have the coaches come up.
Thank you, and good evening to Parkway School Board for allowing us to present this to you. I personally want to thank Mike Seppi and Corey Johnson just for allowing the Parkway Swim Club and the Rockwood Swim Club coaches to kind of lead these meetings and discussion with kind of the intent moving forward to continue these talks. And also like to thank our Parkway Swim Club Booster Board, who's been showing us continuous support through all of this. We had a Booster Board meeting last night, and it was a good discussion, just kind of what this meeting is going to be entailing, and showing a sense of excitement, but a sense of loss as well, as both of our programs have done great things in the past and in current years, and continuing to do great things as well. So like they said, over the past 7 to 8 months, we've gotten together about once a week, once every other week. I know we've kind of had meetings just kind of on our own just to continue that discussion as well, but mainly that comes down to that one question is, can we provide a better experience for the swimmers with a combined program versus something along the kind of the current path of operating in 2 separate programs. And I think we both kind of agree that if it is done correctly, we can provide something that is a good opportunity for not just both of our school districts, but just for the St. Louis region as well. But in continuing having those meetings in the last 7 to 8 months, both of our programs have realized how similar we are in many aspects. So kind of going along our team philosophy of, having fun, working hard, but also teaching life skills through the sport of swimming. Because when it kind of comes down to, it's not just about the sport, but it's also building these kids to become young adults and kind of learning all of those life skills to take when they graduate high school or go to college. And kind of our training base is more of an IM base. So IM base is more of an individual medley focusing on all strokes. So trying to create a more rounded athlete instead of focusing on just kind of one area and kind of sticking to that. And group structure, group movements, everything that kind of goes into that. But kind of that target timeline that we've projected is our Learn to Swim program. The swim schools would be a combined program August of 2023, with the combined program for the swim clubs would be in August of 2024. There you go. As you can see with the anticipated benefits, we would be able to expand into more pools, so we would be able to add additional groups that would be geared more towards that individual athlete and their ability, and kind of help the group progress into a better direction, and ultimately help the program progress into that more of a national level to benefit the swimmers. Along with that, it would be more convenient with families just out of travel. Right now, just out of, speaking out of Parkway, if we have two groups that are a little bit further apart, we would be able to have groups that are a little bit closer to families, and we would be able to have, instead of, I'll give an example, if we have a red group, which is more of our kind of starter off swimmers that are around the 6 to 10 age group, we only have 2 locations. If it was a combined program, it would be, I believe it would be 6 programs. So we'd be able to offer that at more locations, probably more conveniency for families. Along that, for the swimmer to coach ratio would be significantly better. Being in Parkway, that's kind of been a struggle for us, just to kind of get people hired and kind of get into where we kind of need to get them placed. And having kind of that combined program, it will be able to create just kind of a more unified unit with having more coaches on deck instead of a couple, 1 to 2 coaches on deck. So this would be able for us to have more eyes on deck. So it is a more structured and be able to get better instruction to the swimmers as well, instead of just having the ratios further apart. As before, we've had the Kirkwood contract with their pool. We've been in the pool, I believe it's been 4 years, and we've just extended that contract for another 5 years. So it's not just supporting the school districts between Parkway and Rockwood. It's also all the surrounding schools as well that do help support our program as well. So we have people that are up in St. Charles and Wentzville area, but then we also have people that are down in Arnold and kind of all over the place around the St. Louis region. With a stronger overall financial in the short terms, we'd be able to attract and retain coaches more efficiently, but in the long term, we would be able to minimize that cost rate going up. And I say over the considering during the planning kind of our main focus that we kind of want to bring your attention is the last bullet point for the managing the program fees and addressing. It's true that the cost is going to affect Parkway families more than Rockwood families. Over several years, our programs were close comparison to our levels. I would say for our national programs, they were very similar. And then kind of over the years, over time, Rockwood kind of matched that increase to what the staff salary would be increasing to, while Parkway Swim Club did not. So regardless of this, we will be kind of increasing those costs just with the new Kirkwood contract. That is something that we're going to have to implement into those costs as well. So overall, we've done analysis of all the clubs around the area, and we can tell you that we won't be the most expensive in the area, and we will still be in the process as to the fees. We'll look at the time, so we're still kind of working on what those will be looking like, but we would still be able to attract a lot of people, just because we want to make sure that we are giving back to the sport, but also that we are being extremely water safe, since as swim coaches, we know that is our main concern, is making sure that we are opening up our doors to not just select people, but to everyone, because this is, for us, for myself included, that swimming has done such a great thing for me and helped me become the person I am. And that's a lot of things that we want to do as coaches. So, but we've already implemented kind of what those numbers will be kind of looking like with the away meets, something that Coach Sean and I have gotten together. We've already pretty much put our summer schedule, our meet schedule together, so we can kind of see what the numbers will look like kind of going to those meets. And we're also going to be doing that kind of all of the fall and winter and the spring season for next year as well, just to kind of get the idea how many swimmers will be going to meets, how many people would be coming to our meets that we'll be hosting, since we host 3 to 4 meets a year, and I believe Rockwood does about 3 to 4 as well. So it kind of just gives us a good idea kind of what those numbers will be look like kind of going forward.
Okay, thank you guys for allowing us the chance to speak. My name is Sean Harrison. I'm the head coach for the Rockwood Swim Club. So the next steps that we are planning tonight is one of those big ones, updating the Parkway Board of Education, and then tomorrow night updating the Rockwood Board of Education on what we have done. Again, our intent would be to move forward with this through all of those meetings that we've had. To continue planning with our staff, both of our staffs together, on that process of making sure that it's a seamless transition. Continue communicating to both of our groups of families. They have probably about 400 families on their team. We have about 330 families on ours, so making sure that we have consistent and accurate communication for all of those members current, and also to the community at large for those future members of our clubs. And one of the ways that we've done that, we have a frequently asked questions page that's linked on both of our websites, and that opened last July. Since then, we've got about 40 responses on the sheet, and we follow up with those, and we discuss any items that are brought to our attention there, and we update that site regularly to make sure that everybody has access to the process and that it's open and transparent. Finalizing a transition process for the Parkway Aquatics staff. As I know Mike alluded to earlier, the AEL program is run through Parkway. But we have transferred staff from Parkway to Rockwood before, but making sure that that's a seamless process as well. We do not anticipate any loss of staff. In fact, like Chris said, we're always hiring, and we always need people. And then working with our, both of our clubs have a booster group that are both very passionate about swimming, much like you guys with education. They are parents or former parents of swimmers, and they do a lot to help support our clubs and working with them on a transition process for those groups as well to help move forward. And then honoring both of our clubs' history. Parkway Swim Club is turning 50 years old this year, or just did. They have a tremendous history of success, world record holders, Olympians. So the Parkway School District has produced a lot of really talented, great swimmers. They've also helped, just like Rockwood has, getting those 8, 9, and 10-year-olds to be water safe. To love the water so that even, they're not going to grow up and be those Olympians, but they can enjoy the water for the rest of their lives. And that's one of the things that's really important to both of our missions, is to make sure that we're helping those athletes that are at the very top, but we're also serving the community at the bottom, that their goals aren't that high. But making sure that they have a wonderful experience with swimming. Embracing the experience and talent from both of our staffs. I think we have a combined couple hundred years of coaching experience with our staffs, and the ability to bring those together, even though we talk on the pool decks and we're friendly, to be able to share specific ideas with each other has really been a good experience throughout this process of how each of us do things a little bit differently and potentially help solve a problem that we had that we just were stuck with, having somebody else to bounce an idea off of. So having a staff that is bigger is helping with that communication process. And then understanding and honoring through this process the things that make our programs unique. As Chris said, though, we found that we have so many things in common philosophically, the way that we train swimmers, the way that our mission and vision statements are almost identical. Making sure that we honor the past of both swim programs in a way that does them justice as we move forward.
All right, so that was a lot of information. Thank you very much. I just want to wrap up and then happy to answer any questions. All of us can answer any questions you might have by saying, Corey and I have had the pleasure of taking a back seat these last few months and watching the coaches, not just Chris and Sean, but all the other full-time coaches and staff between the aquatics programs, really take ownership of these conversations, and they led them. We just helped facilitate the dialogue. And so as a person who doesn't come from a swimming background, it was very evident from the very first meeting the amount of passion that they had. And I so appreciate the ownership that they took into this. We talked a lot at the very beginning about we're coming together on something that we don't know where it's going to go. But in order to determine if we can better serve swimmers working together than alone, we need to set aside our personal bias, whatever we think that might be, and say, how could we what would this look like? And they did that, and that's a credit to them. So I'm so appreciative of the amount of work. I know I speak for Corey as well, because we wouldn't be here tonight had it not been for the commitment of all of those coaches in the room. So that's everything that we have. Thank you so much. I know we took more time than we usually take. I appreciate that. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to try to answer them.
I might have some questions, but I just want to thank you, Mike. Last summer when we started down this road, it was Mike's and Corey's idea that, in fact, as well, I'm not a swimmer, that we really need to look to the expertise of our coaches. And Mike said, I think they need to come to the table. And I know they came to the table. There was, a little bit of understanding who they are. But as Corey updated me every month, it was just apparent that it was becoming very organic and very natural as was been discussed. And eventually, probably was it in late January where you brought Dr. Kane and I together? And both of us were delighted to hear what they had accomplished and what really two groups can come together and accomplish. And one of the questions that both Dr. Kane and I had is this really what's good for our students, our young people in both districts? And I think you heard him talk about the developmental approach. They're going to have more coaches and more breakdowns and more facilities. So he's not here tonight, but I can tell you Dr. Kane, like me, are very much excited and pleased by the work that has been completed and look forward to this partnership.
Now, thanks as well, Mike. We appreciate hearing your report each year. I'm one of those that loves to see that slide of who's doing what in the programs, so I appreciate that. I'll ask one question. I know some of our other board members have questions as well. We've heard mixed reviews from some of the Parkway swim families. So have the families in both the Rockwood and Parkway swim clubs been surveyed? What's been the feedback that you've gotten?
So that's a great question. I'll kind of give a high level, and if you guys want to, they're the boots on the ground, so they may have a little bit more in-depth answer than I have. But it's important for us to make sure that this process is open and transparent and very forthcoming. And so some of the things that have been happening since last June when we agreed to start this conversation is, Sean mentioned, we do have this FAQ page on the website that is regularly updated. If you can find it from the homepage of either club's website. We update that as the meetings have went on. If we started out with a series of questions that we thought were important and what we thought the answers might be. And then as the planning has gone on, we've updated that information. Also on that page is a place anytime a family member can come in and fill out a form, give us feedback, and then we take that into the meetings with the coaches. These guys, I know, I don't want to speak for them, but have had conversations at swim meets, at practices, parents have sent emails, so on and so forth. So it was it's a conversation, at the very beginning we talked about being open and answering parents based on the information we had at that time. Because at the beginning we didn't know. We didn't know where the conversation was going to go. And I think that led to some frustration, which I completely understand, because it was almost a vacuum of information, but it wasn't intentional. It was, we don't know what we don't know yet. And so we've really worked hard, and these guys and their staff have worked hard to have conversations with parents. The other thing we're looking at right now, what we're hoping to do this spring, we wanted to get through these board meetings of having what we're going to call an open house. That's a loose term. But essentially, it's an opportunity where we will invite all the families in on a night. We'll give a presentation, something along the lines of what you've seen here, but based on any updates that we have at that time. And then we're going to have coaches there that night. So parents can stay, ask any questions they have. When they leave, we've already talked about the feedback mechanism where we want them to give us their feedback on things that excite them, things that they want to make sure that we're considering, especially as it relates to the swim club. One of the reasons that we were intentional about saying we don't think this should happen this August is because we know that will take more time, and we know we need to gather more feedback and more opinions and more, just talk to more people. We weren't at the point yet because they hadn't got together to figure out what it might even look like to be able to explain it. We're there now. And so we anticipate as we move forward past tonight, we'll be doing a lot of opportunities to share, and then always open and welcome feedback. Did I miss anything?
When we were initially introduced to this idea, there were some terms used interchangeably: swim club, swim team. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to us is this all in one? Are there still going to be separate swim teams versus the swim club?
Great question. So again, within Aquatics, there's two components. We have Learn to Swim. You may have heard swim school terminology. In Parkway, that's what it's called. In Rockwood, Learn to Swim. And so that's one component, swim lesson program. Those are folks who you can start, I think, at 6 months as the youngest on up to learn swimming. So that's one component. And then it's swim club. And so we do anticipate saying there is one swim club team. There are multiple groups within a swim club. So think of it as levels of ability. So they're talking about having 8 levels. So, when you enter, you're young, you start kind of at the bottom, and then you progress, not unlike swim lessons. As you progress and become more, your abilities increase, you go to higher levels. And so the swim club has several groups within it. They're all called different names, but we're looking at having 8 different levels within the club, but all part of one swim club.
And then will these fall under MISHA rules and regulations?
No. So this is a club sport. So it is not overseen by the high school swim teams. A comparison I can give you, if you've heard of our Thunder Volleyball Club program that we have through Community Ed, same scenario. Serves both districts. Many of the kids who play high school volleyball also play in the club in the off season. Same thing with swimming. So many of the kids that are in both Parkway and Rockwood Swim Club, when it's high school swim season, they will go swim with their high school team, and then they will come back to the club. And they're governed by USA Swimming, Ozark region. So it's a region of USA Swimming that is the governing body for the swim clubs.
Questions.
Sure.
One, if you could explain what the Learn to Swim program would look like as a combined, and the age ranges that it covers?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So Tyler, who is leading the Parkway program, a little known fact is this is his first year in Parkway. Last year he worked in the Rockwood Learn to Swim program. So Lori, who leads the Rockwood Learn to Swim program, they're very familiar with one another's programs. In fact, again, I would say there's probably more alike than different in the way that they operate. And so Learn to Swim, it's multi-stations. So maybe the number of stations vary right now between the two programs, but I think they're looking at maybe around 6 total stations when all is said and done. So again, same scenario, your kid can come in. It's not necessarily age-based, it's more ability-based. So when you come in, they do an assessment of what your swimming skills may or may not be, and then they place you into the station that can teach you from the basics of getting comfortable putting your face in the water to doing the breaststroke. I mean, so the goal is twofold. One, to make all of the swimmers comfortable and feel safe in the water. And then for those that choose and really get a passion for swimming, think of it almost like a feeder program for the swim club. So those students then, those swimmers, as they progress up through the Learn to Swim program and get to the top of the top level, they have an opportunity to either discontinue swimming and then go and do what they do, or they can transition right over to the swim club, and then it's the same kind of scenario there where they have levels that you can progress through it as you increase your ability.
Okay, and then so the swim program would remain student-based. It's not to be adult-based at all. It's all student-based.
No, what I will tell you, in Rockwood, we actually do offer adult swim lessons because there are many adults who are looking for that. I don't think Parkway, and that might be a space issue right now. So the Rockwood adult swim lessons were always open beyond Rockwood, but it is now something that we can promote more heavily within Parkway. But we do offer that, but that's kind of it's not really, it's a little bit separate from it's all part of the same aquatics program, but it's not really the youth-based program that we're talking about.
And then there was a comment or a statement about a combined program would improve the ability to attract and retain staff.
Yeah.
How and or why?
That's a really great question. So as I was talking as we were going through this process, Sean and Chris were sharing a couple things. One is as we look at a combined club, it does a couple things. So it increases the club's profile overall at the national level. So that's a benefit to our swimmers who are desiring potentially to swim at the college level. So that it brings more eyes to the club. But secondly, the swim world and the people who do swimming are kind of a cohesive group around the country. And so having a higher profile club makes working for a higher profile club more attractive. And so we believe that we'll be able, in addition to that, in Rockwood, the current pay rates for the swim club coaches are a bit higher than in Parkway. And so now the Parkway coaches will come up to that because they would come over and through the fiscal agent be hired through Rockwood. And so being able to offer higher paying positions, of course, naturally we hope that translates into making it a more attractive position.
Okay. I'm sorry, one more question.
Sure.
Based on that. Where would be the locations of all of the different?
Yep. Great question. So between the two districts, there are, believe it or not, 8 high school pools. There are actually 2 swimming pools at Crestview Middle School, one indoor, one outdoor pool. So that's 10 different pools plus the Kirkwood pool, so 11 pools. So all of them is the short answer. I can tell you that for the Learn to Swim program, the swim lesson program, we're looking at 3 sites. That would be Crestview Middle School, Kirkwood High School, and Rockwood Summit High School. And the reason, just so you know about Crestview Middle School, right down the street, Tyler's doing lessons at Parkway West High. It's about 3 miles, I think, down the road. But Crestview Middle School used to be a high school. It is now a middle school. The school does not use that pool at all, so only community ed uses that pool. So it is really the home base for swim lessons because we have much more pool space and more pool time. And so we would combine the Parkway West High and the Crestview would all just be at Crestview because we have a lot more pool space and hours that we can offer the program there. And then as far as swim club, they'd be spread out over all the pools.
Okay, thank you.
Multi-part question. I know Parkway's pools are just a little bit older than the average Rockwood pool. And you mentioned Kirkwood's also one of the pools that are used. Through the generosity of our citizens, our public, we passed a significant bond issue and we'll be investing millions of dollars in our pools over the next couple of years or so. What are the conditions of Rockwood's pools in relation to Parkway, if maybe the swim coaches would be the best ones to answer that? Yeah. And are they maintained at the same capacity? Are they larger?
Yeah, I will let them answer that. All I will add to that is that these guys have already we've worked with Ralph Canese and talked to us about the tentative timeline for the pool projects in Parkway. And so they've already started to think about how do we shift practices when the time those pools are down. And then as it relates to Rockwood, the Crestview pool that I just mentioned, we're actually looking at doing some renovation to that pool here in the next year. And so that'll cause a little bit of shift in how we do a couple things. But these guys can talk about the difference in size and use of the pools.
I hope that the Rockwood Board of Education asked that question because I'd love to get on a soapbox about Eureka High School. So Eureka High School is the only 6-lane high school pool in the Rockwood School District. So the Lafayette, Marquette, and Summit pools are all 8 lanes. They were all built significantly later than the Eureka High School pool. That is the only pool that is, I would say, in a comparable condition to the Parkway pools. I think that, like what Mike said, being able to have use of 11 different facilities when those Parkway pools are being renovated, it makes it easier for the club to shift and maintain the same level of community offerings that we will be offering. It'll give us more flexibility, but the pools are in good shape. They're maintained very well. And Rockwood Swim Club owns and operates our own 50-meter outdoor pool on the Crestview Middle School campus that Parkway utilizes already in the summer. So that'll be something that just continues. They just won't have to pay us for it. So.
question while you're there.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that we were hearing about when we were even talking about the idea of an auditorium before we dismantled that idea was the diving boards. And how does Rockwood compare with your diving program? And will there be increased capability for the students to have better diving facilities than what Parkway has been able to provide for them?
Yeah, so diving is outside of our purview, but the Rockwood pools are all in compliance with the diving, I guess the county statutes for allowing diving boards.
Okay.
The three pools that I mentioned that are newer, the Marquette and Summit and Lafayette, shouldn't have issues ever going forward. The Eureka pool could, because it's the oldest, so it has the, much like the Parkway pools, so it could fall under some new guidelines where diving would be restricted at that facility. But again, we don't offer any diving-specific programs. The high schools do those. We periodically would offer through Community Ed a diving summer course. But again, that's something that's hit or miss based on the availability of diving instructors.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next up, where's Paul Tandy? Paul Tandy, our Chief Communications Emergency Management Officer, and Annie Dickerson, who's our Director of Communications, will discuss the Communication Department Comprehensive Program Review.
Good evening, President Todd, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Ms. Calanda. I'm sorry, Ms. Stover. I have to say that report was amazing. I just remember when we started that program close to 10 years ago, and where it's come is just so phenomenal. I'm just so excited about it. Annie and I are pleased to be here tonight to talk to you about, for your consideration, some recommendations on the Communications Department Program Review, talking to you about the key topics, guiding questions, and the timeline we'd like to propose for the program review. We haven't had a program review of the Communications Department for a number of years. We had it scheduled before COVID hit, and then we had the bond issue, so we're pleased to get it back on the schedule. Very excited about that. Annie's going to present with you the key topics and guiding questions. What I'd like to say is that we have used the Parkway Communications Advisory Committee. You may be familiar with that group. I know that Jeff and Mrs. Hopper attend those meetings, and we are using that group as our planning team. We've had that committee in place for probably over 40 years in Parkway, members of the community who are professionals in the communications and marketing fields. And we met with them in February to discuss some preliminary plans, got some feedback from them, made some adjustments, and then after that meeting, we did meet with President Todd and Vice President Hopper, along with Dr. Tyson, to kind of refine what we heard, ask a few more questions of them, and then we made some final revisions and then developed the plan, which Annie's going to present to you for your consideration. We do believe we can do this in-house. We have resources both within the Communications Department as well as with Dr. Tyson, as we always have his services. And then we have several members of the Communication Advisory who have also offered their time based on their personal expertise that they have to assist us in the evaluation. So we're pleased to be able to do this in-house. We are using as a guide a tool from the National School Public Relations Association that has it's a benchmarking guide which has rubrics of professional practice. And so we've used this as a guideline to develop the key topics that we're going to present, Annie's going to present to you for your consideration. So with that, I will turn it over to Annie.
Thank you, Mr. Tandy, and members of the board, Dr. Marty and Miss Stover, our pillar of Parkway. Thanks for having us this evening. As Paul shared, we have a couple of items to share with you, and again, this is essentially our outline of the process that we intend to take on this year as part of our program evaluation. I have 3 items for you, I think. And then I'm going to let you get on with your evening if I can get the slides to advance. So essentially, we want to outline for you the topics, what we're looking at as part of this evaluation, and then I'm going to share with you our timeline, how we get there, some of the things that will be, the data that we'll be gathering along the way, and then finally the guiding questions that we use as all program evaluations to figure out what we intend to answer as part of this process. First, I want to say foundationally, while the communications department leads the work of communications in Parkway, I think it's fair to say as professionals, we know that we don't own that independently, that communications are foundational to what we all do. In fact, as part of our training and experience, we know that having one kind of outlet for communications is not a best practice, and that's not what defines an exemplary program. So as you all know, your communications with our community and being transparent and available in all of the community meetings that I see you at all of the time are foundational to our work. Our superintendent's leadership team and Dr. Marty and all the things that they do are foundational to communications with our community. We hear from parents that the most important communications they receive are from their teachers and from their principals. And so I just want to say, while we're looking at the big picture program at the district level, we certainly don't own all of the communications. I think we all are part of that. So for this program evaluation, these are the topics we're intending to study. So we're looking at the comprehensive plan that we have for our program. So we'll be looking at our goals, our strategies, our objectives, and I'm going to talk about what that looks like a little bit in a minute. As part of our comprehensive plan, we have internal communications. So those are obviously primarily our staff. You all, I would consider our board to be internal audiences. Our administrators are an audience. We have a lot of sub-audiences and different groups, employee groups that we work with. So that would be internal communications. For external, we're looking at things across the board, like primarily our parent and family communications, but also all of the community relations activities that we do. I heard Dr. Marty outline all of our committees and advisory groups we work with earlier. We work with chambers and business leaders and religious leaders and mayors and city administrators and police chiefs. And we do a lot of outreach in the community because we're constantly listening in that continuous loop of feedback. And then we have a pretty strong media relations program in Parkway. We have someone who's dedicated to that role who is very well trusted and respected in the region. Another key part of as Paul mentioned, the National School Public Relations Association has all of these topics as what they consider to be foundational to a strong program. And so one of those areas is marketing and branding. And community engagement, how do we interact with the community, what opportunities do we have for the community to give input on a regular basis, and then crisis communications, which we love and do pretty frequently. So we'll be looking at all of these as part of our planning. In addition, the communications department also provides support to the Parkway Alumni Association. We see our alumni as key stakeholders in our work, and we use them in a number of different ways. They often give back to the district, but they also provide mentoring and support to our students, and so we'll be looking at their program. And then sports marketing is also part of our department. Sports marketing is essentially the advertising opportunities that we have for our local businesses to support our athletics and activities. And so we have community partners that have signage that you've probably seen on scoreboards during football games and banners and things like that. So sports marketing is in our program as well, and so we'll want to look at the goals and activities of those programs. Okay, so how do we get there? Over the next few months, we've actually already started a lot of this, but over the next few months, we'll be looking at data and doing analysis of our current program. So we'll be using a number of different types of research, primary, secondary, informal, and formal is what we would call it in the PR world. But for example, community surveys, all of our stakeholder groups, internal, external, parents, staff, community, and we'd be asking a lot of questions about how they prefer to receive information, and are they satisfied with the current amount of information that they're getting or the types of information they're getting? Are they engaging with that? What do the metrics look like? Are they opening the emails? Are they reading? Are they on our social media? Are they, do we have the right objectives in place for that? So that would be essentially a combination of surveys, and then we're hoping to do a deeper dive of focus groups in the fall. So we would pull together, again, those key stakeholder groups and then ask some more open-ended questions, give people more of an opportunity to just talk about what's important to them. And then, as Paul mentioned, we're using the National School Public Relations Association benchmark audit. So that's, they have outlined, what does an exemplary program look like in all of those key topic areas. So we will be doing a self-audit and then also working with our communications advisory and our department team and probably our leadership team and other key groups to see, are we meeting, where are we at in terms of all of these different areas. And then in terms of reviewing best practices, we have a number of resources that we use on an ongoing basis, but probably a deeper dive of what are districts that are like districts similar to Parkway? What do their communications programs look like? So that would be districts across the country. We regularly attend those conferences at the national and state level and present. So we have a number of relationships across the country that we can look at as we look at award-winning programs at the national level, things like that. In terms of timeline, as Paul mentioned, we've already engaged our community advisory group, which we're asking to kind of help steer this work. So we met with them. We're planning to continue to meet with them throughout this process. We met with Mr. Todd and Ms. Hopper to kind of get some feedback initially on our plan. We are here tonight on March 15th, as you see right now, getting your feedback here. Our formal research and evaluation period would be from essentially now, tomorrow, as we walk away from here, after we have your feedback, through October, and then our goal would be to come back to you with recommendations and our final evaluation by the end of this calendar year. If Nikki, Ms. Stover, tells us that's when we come back. So, related to all of the topics that we've outlined, these are the guiding questions that we would report back to you at the end of this evaluation. How does the program align with best practices? Using all of those research tools that we talked about. What is the current satisfaction level among all of our key stakeholders with our communications, primarily district communications? What are the preferences of them? In terms of, we talked about the channels, social media and email, and how people prefer to receive information. How often? What types of content are they interested in? And then I think one of the most important ones is, how does the communications program support and align with the district goals? Making sure that our CSIP work, as Dr. Beckner is going to talk about, and our Project Parkway strategic planning work, if we say these are our goals, how is the communications department helping us achieve those goals? And then foundationally, as part of all of this, does the staffing of the department and the budget match what the program needs and what the district needs? And we would answer all of those questions for you for all of those topics that we've outlined. And that's all I have for now, other than taking time for your thoughts and your feedback.
I'd like to just add one more thought that I came up with as I was listening to your presentation. Our special school district families, making sure that we get them somehow included, whether they're external communications, et cetera, but some of the feedback that I sometimes get is that they have difficulty navigating resources throughout the district and finding out, excuse me, who are the key contacts, where to go for resources, things of that nature, and putting a plug even like on our main website that shows special school district services or something to that effect. So I just want to make sure that we get that included in this, that we don't miss out on an opportunity to reach out to that group.
We will definitely note that. And as part of the community engagement I also see us going to all of our advisory teams. So PACCD would be a group that we would go to and seek feedback. You know, our PAMI group we would go to and seek feedback. So we'd be looking at, you know, our PTO leadership we would go to and seek feedback. So, but there are probably other places in addition to PACCD that we could do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This summer, St. Louis hosts the National School Public Relations Conference.
Yes.
Which will be great for a lot of us to attend and hear national speakers. And I don't know if you want to say more about that. I think it's at
I would highly encourage you to attend the National School PR Conference. Because it's in St. Louis, it's a great opportunity. A few years ago, one of our former leadership team members attended with me, and he said, I go to a lot of school conferences and education conferences, and he said, this one was so unique and different and a different lens to think through. I think school PR people, we do take the job seriously of being very strategic and data-driven about the decisions that we're making. And so there's actually a lot of strategic planning types of sessions and things that are broader than just, you know, let's sit down and figure out whether we should use Facebook or Instagram today. So we do that too, but I would highly recommend it. Some of the best programs and communications plans that we've implemented in Parkway, I think, have come from, you know, ideas or generated ideas from our colleagues across the country who we consider great friends. So if you're available, it's June, I'm just going to say this wrong.
Mid-July.
It's Paul's birthday.
It's mid-July.
It's July, Paul's birthday. It's right around July 15th. I'll send you the details. I'd be happy to host you, take you around. St. Louis is hosting, and the Missouri School PR Group, we're hosting, so we'll be having lots of fun activities, too, around that time.
Union Station, isn't it? Union Station?
It's at Union Station.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, just to confirm, I go to some of the state public relations groups, and I've gone to the national conference, and you hit it on the nail. It's more positive than most conferences you go to.
We like to.
Public relations, they have fun.
We're kind of, well, we tend to be kind of, you know.
Yeah, positive, fun.
Talkers and get-to-knowers and social. Yeah. We're the cheerleaders. We like to have fun. So, yeah.
Oh, it is a very good conference.
It is a good conference. I highly recommend it.
Well, we should also thank you. I know we had a lot of conversation at our advisory committee meeting about doing this internally rather than hiring an external consulting firm to conduct this massive work, because this is a huge undertaking. And so thank you we've got some expert individuals in our communications department. We're very fortunate here in Parkway to have the people that we do in place to help with all the PR matters. There's lots that people don't even know about because it's managed so well. So thank you.
Well, we have a great team. We appreciate that. And as Paul mentioned, our communications advisory team that's been in Parkway for a long, long time. A lot of districts don't have that. One of them said to me, she does market research for Bayer, and she said, you know, I'll moderate your focus groups, and I'm a trained moderator. And I'm like, I would have to pay a lot of money for a trained moderator for my focus group. So we will use a lot of professional expertise here in the community. Yes.
So how frequently should we be doing a full comprehensive program review?
Of the communications department or of all of our programs?
Of the communications department specifically, since the last one was like 15.
I would say from my lens as the director of communications, we should be reviewing the communications program annually for an annual plan, and then we should be reviewing it at least every 5 years in alignment with the strategic plan. So what I keep saying this year, and Kevin's smiling across the room, is that I love that we're doing our program evaluation right now because we're walking exactly alongside the strategic planning initiatives of Parkway. So I know when I get to the end of this program evaluation will be also the same time that we're nearing the end of what we're recommending for strategic planning, and I can align the program work perfectly, because a lot of times people think the communications department, you know, we do a lot of email newsletters and publications and things like that, but we also help manage, we do a lot of research on public opinion among our stakeholder groups and monitoring that data, which directly aligns with the work of strategic planning. So I'm excited that it aligns that way, and I think that's how it should align. Did I speak? No? Okay. Kevin's smiling, so I guess that's good.
hearing the results.
We'll be excited to come back.
Okay, next up, let's see, I started my day with Kevin Beckner almost 14 hours ago, and now we're gonna wrap it up together. Kevin Beckner, our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, to discuss our CSIP.
Well, on the night we celebrate school board recognition, I appreciate getting to be your caboose and bring it home tonight. So this is our second of several different work sessions around our comprehensive school improvement plan. This is part of Project Parkway, and we did relaunch that work, as you all know, because we talked about it last month, with State of the District on February 1st, where we had our first large-scale community event. Our next one is on February 17th, and at that one, we'll have a lot more to discuss, because we'll be further along, April 17th, thank you. As we continue this work, as a reminder, Project Parkway, this iteration, 3.0, has three main parts to it. The first is what we're discussing tonight, which is the development of our one-year plan, our comprehensive school improvement plan, which is required as part of our work with the state of Missouri, but also just good practice to make sure that you know what your priorities are each year. The second part is we are refreshing our vision for students, and we're creating a vision for our staff and a vision for our district. So we're calling those our vision sets, and that will be completed by the end of this school year. We'll talk a little bit about that one just briefly tonight. And then by the time we get about a little less than 18 months from now, we will design a new 5-year strategic plan. It's important to note that because as we get into naming the timelines for next year's objectives, we really are trying to make those only run through June of '24, because we know we will have a new 5-year comprehensive plan at that point. But we'll talk just briefly about that second one, even though that's not our focus tonight, because we did go out with a thought exchange to our community about with a question that said, if you had, what's one word or keyword you would use to describe a student who's fully prepared for college life or career? I'm just going to preview what our community said. We had well over 1,000 responses, which was amazing. The words will be small, but you'll see why, because there's a lot of things. But here's kind of what our community said. If we just look at the top, our community says we want our graduates, our students, to be resilient, adaptable, critical thinkers who are responsible, flexible, and independent. You know, that's what our community came back and said. On March 30th, Steering Committee, which is the group that includes community members, some of our board members, and thank you, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, Ms. Matt Franklin, for serving on the Steering Committee through Project Parkway. But we'll be spending most of the meeting on the 30th talking about this, because some of those words are very similar and overlap, and there's maybe some work that we need to do. And one of our Steering Committee members mentioned last time we met, which was last week, that he was part of this work 10 years ago, and resilient and adaptable were not on the list. And it just shows why we have to re-engage our community in the conversation. And it's been, 10 or 12 years since we've done so. And here we have some things that our community is now saying, now these are important things that maybe weren't before. And it just speaks to why we have to do this process of reestablishing where we are. So as a reminder, we went through these last month. DESE does require certain things of our comprehensive school improvement program. We're picking out just 4 out of 9 of them to highlight for you guys. This is an important one that we'll touch on again later, that it contains a limited number of focused objectives. The idea being if everything's important, nothing's important. You can't possibly focus on everything at the same time. Secondly, we have to involve our internal stakeholders, but also our external stakeholders. And that's where both the Project Parkway community meetings and the steering committee come in. We need to make sure that we're using data to say what our needs are. So that was part of State of the District, is identifying what's our current reality now, where are we right now. We've actually gotten additional information with the release of our annual performance report from DESE a couple weeks ago, but we do need to make sure we use that data to inform our plan. And then it drives leaders and teachers in the development and implementation of academic instruction. And this is just important because as we talk to our colleagues at the State Department, they're like, your CSIP is really about kids. And we all know that there's a lot of other important things, like how are we doing financially? How are we doing staffing-wise? How are we doing communication-wise? But for our purposes, like, no, it needs to actually drive what you're doing with kids. And so that's just important for us to know that that's why we're living kind of in that area, which for us under Project Parkway 2.0 is what we call Goal 1, right? That's all about students and being focused on students. Now, I want to name these because these are really important because they're coming up over and over again, the feedback. There are, I think, 4 tensions in this work and things that are just really challenges that we're just navigating and why we have multiple feedback loops built into this. This is your second work session. Strategic planning team has met, the steering committee's met multiple times, and this process is iterating, and it should. And what we're seeing over and over again is there are 4 things that we just keep coming up against where these things are challenges that we have to navigate. So the first one came up at our last steering committee meeting. We want to focus on all students, but we also need to be specific about what we're working on and specific about goals. And those 2 things are just in tension. Do you make goals around all kids? Do you make goals that are very specific? That's just a challenge and a tension that's going to be there. The second one is the idea of having limited number of focus objectives when we all want to do everything. We all want to do everything, and we can't. Because if we focus on everything, we will focus on nothing. And that's just going to be a tension that we have to live with, right? The third one, we've seen this one. Oh man, like this date is too far out. Like we got to be more urgent versus we recognize where we are, and it's going to take some time to get to where we want to be. And that also is just a tension. How fast do we move versus how carefully do we move? And when do we need to go slow to go fast? And then the last one, and this came up, several of us were at religious leaders this morning, and this one came up there too. We want our scores to improve. We want our kids to be learning. We also want to focus on the whole child and know that we don't just care about test scores, but we want to do both. And so how do we balance that tension? And I wanted to put those up front just to name that because I'm sure some of your questions will come up, and these will be tensions that emerge because these have been tensions that have been emerging in every piece of feedback we've gotten as we've been working on our CSIP. So last time when we met, we shared 5 preliminary focus areas, and we got your feedback. We also got feedback from steering committee, from our leadership team, lots of different groups. Just as a reminder of what those were, we'll put those up. But I'm going to share a summary of the feedback we heard around these 5 areas. So we heard kind of 4 big things, then some other individual comments that were valuable and important. But we want to see, like, how do these things all connect back to mission? The connection there might not be perfectly clear of how does this get us to all of our students being capable, curious, caring, confident learners who are fully prepared to respond to the challenges of an ever-changing world. Secondly, how do the strategies we have in each area connect to well-being and achievement? Like the connection might just not be super clear there. You got 5 areas, but we're not quite seeing that. This one, I think, came up even here at the board. So where are those operating things that you have to do versus student-focused things that you need to do? And how do you navigate that you have to do both of those things? And I think just overall the feedback was, this is a good start, but we're not there yet, which is why we're here again, right? And going through a process of getting feedback and iterating. And so what we're going to share tonight is where we have been since the last month, since we met, and getting lots of feedback, including from those of you who are on the steering committee, and sharing kind of an overall how we're picturing this, and then what we're thinking as far as objectives and how we organize the work. And then tonight we'll be seeking just your input. What do you want us thinking about as we keep going through this process of iterating? So we've been introducing just a pyramid model where we have mission and vision at the top. That's where we want to get all of our kids, is that everybody leaves fully prepared for the challenges of an ever-changing world. The second one is a new term for us that was not in our previous plan. All the other ones kind of were. But just that idea of what are our big performance indicators? What are the big areas? These would be all areas, all kids are achieving, or all kids are well, or all kids, those big topics that we want to focus on. But we can't just live in all, we have to get specific. We have to have SMART goals. Okay, specifically what are you going to do? And how are you going to measure that? How are you going to know you're making progress? We call that level the objectives. Our previous plan we call measurable objectives, but just those things that really specific that we can measure and see how we're doing. Once you identify those first 3, you can actually start making your strategies. Okay, if we say that we want all of our students to be language that Andy mentioned before, prepared for life, college, career, all those things, if we say that's one of the things, what's the strategy to get kids there? We're going to do X. Once you identify your strategies, you have to actually make a plan of how you're going to do it. And that's where you get into action steps and like specifically, what are we doing? But importantly, and that piece about operational, there are some things that if we don't do them, nothing that's on that pyramid can happen. And Patty and I have been talking about this a lot as our CFO. If we are not strong financially, it doesn't matter what else we have in the pyramid. Like it's not going to work because we're not going to have the staff or facilities or resources that we need to do the work. Or if our facilities do not support student learning, we're not going to be prepared to do the work. Or if Dr. Boggs and his team don't have staff for us, like how are we going to do this work? There are some things that are just foundational that we have to have. Importantly, having those doesn't mean we get to mission. Because we could have a strong balance sheet and great facilities and we could still have kids not learning. So we're really trying to name, there are some foundational pieces that we're building on. So things might be, if we are not concerned with equity and making sure that all of our students are learning, we will never get to mission. If we don't have strong professional development for all of our employee groups, we are not going to get to mission. If we don't have strong finances, strong operational procedures, we're not going to be able to get there. So even tomorrow, I'm meeting with the Operations Action Team. We're going to go over all of this so that our operations team can be brought into the loop on this, and it should be a great conversation. But I want to focus on those top three for our time to get your input and sort of where we are in terms of this work and the feedback we've received. Obviously, what happens in this diagram is the 30,000-foot view is Grant Wiggins, way back in the day, Project Parkway 1.0 was our consultant who helped us, and he said, your mission is really your like sketch on the back of a napkin. Like, why do we exist? That's highest level. Why do we exist? And that's where our mission comes from. Ground level is what am I doing every day and what are the basics that I have to work on, right? So we do have 3 performance indicators, big areas. Each of these 3 will have 3 specific measurable pieces underneath it. So the first one being that all of our students will meet or exceed academic growth and achievement targets. Growth really important here because this is a huge one. We've discussed as with the board, and we are measured on student growth and academic achievement, so we want to make sure we're including both in this conversation. The second one, though, we know that students are not just test scores. So we want to make sure that all of our students report being socially and emotionally well. I'll go ahead and name up front. The biggest feedback we have so far on this one is what does it mean to be well? We know often what it means to not be well. We can identify when somebody is not well, but what does it actually mean to be well? So Dr. Matheson and his team have been engaging in that conversation, and we need to really get clearer on that, but we want all of our students to be thriving, right, and be successful, not just academically, but be well. And then the third one is that all of our students will leave high school with a path and passion for their post-high school pursuits. We want school to be relevant and meaningful for kids, not just that they are well and happy, but that they know where they want to go and what they want to do and what they want to be passionate about. I think last meeting Mr. Schindler asked, like, where's all the work around personalized? Like, how do we capture that there's something else we want for kids and we want to be valuable? So we'll go through each of those, then we'll ask for your input so we can capture what we might need to be thinking about moving forward. So first one, we have 3 specific objectives. So these are the measurable pieces. How would we know if we're making progress towards that? So first one, we want all of our students reading on grade level, specifically end of second grade and moving forward. If we want all of our students there, we know that right now our data told us that about 71% of students are there. So we want to just increase that and keep increasing that and getting them to that point that we have them reading on grade level. The second one, we have gaps. We do not have every one of our student groups performing at the same level. And if we ever want to get to all, we have to actually focus on all. We have to focus on each. So this is about closing that gap between our overall group and what the state defines as that student group, which is any student with an IEP, any student who is on free and reduced lunch, any student who's learning English, any student who identifies as Black, or any student who identifies as Hispanic. That's what they say is the student group, and that's where we see that gap. We also don't just want to close the gap because we could have our all-student group go down, and we don't want to just close the gap that way. We want to rise. We want all boats lifted by the same tide, as they say. And then our last one, we missed our state target in math by less than 1 point. And we just need to address that and say we should have our students all meeting the target. And so next year, math goes into program evaluation, and this is something that we want to focus on is, no, we need to make sure that we're doing well in mathematics as well. But again, students aren't just test scores, and so we have the whole category of students being socially and emotionally well. Through extensive conversation with Dr. Matheson's team and the folks who work in this area, it became clear even through making the state of the district graphics that we are missing key data in this area. And so a lot of our objectives in this area are about how will we actually identify the ways that we would measure this. Along with that sort of question, how do we know what well means? So the first one, by June of 24, Parkway will have implemented measures and identified a baseline for this indicator. Again, we do not have a way to determine if all of our students are well. And we believe that we need one so that we can determine how well our students are thriving. Important work. Second one, okay, so first one, are you thriving? Are you doing well socially and emotionally? But second one, we know that there are some students who aren't. And we have been doing a lot to try to serve those students. But we have not had a way to capture how effective have our services been in that area. How many students are in need of direct service? How many students are accessing direct service? How many students are exiting the need for direct service? So through the social worker evaluation, Sherry Magaja has identified that we need a way to electronic record keep in this area that we just currently don't have. And that's one of the recommendations that will be or has come out of that group. Dr. Matheson's nodding his head, so that we can have that indicator. And then the last one is we know that we added a lot of resources on the social emotional side over the last 4 or 5 years as a result of the mental health task force and the recommendations that came out of that group. We added social emotional, SEBs, social emotional behavioral specialists. Man, Greg is helping me out with his head nods over there like crazy. It's good. We added these social emotional behavior specialists on top of social workers, on top of care coordinators, on top of school counselors. Clearly defining all of those roles, the services they provide, how effective they're being is something that they'll be engaging with you as the board in their comprehensive evaluation next year around those, and we need to get clarity around those and ensure that we're providing high quality services. And then our last one is that we want our students to have a path and a passion. I will also name feedback we've received already is we need to make sure that this is not just high school. This is middle school students, this is elementary school students, this is all students. Before I even put the thing up, we do a graduate survey every year. It's part of what's required for us to make sure the state requires us to follow up with all students 180 days after graduating so that we know where they're going, whether it's 2-year college, 4-year college, military, trade school, wherever they're going. But we ask a bunch of other questions, and we have not actually used this data well. By use this data well, I mean, like, I literally had to ask Nathan, where is this data? How do I get it? Like, where is it? We haven't been using it. But we ask some really, really valuable questions. One of those questions is about whether you are fully prepared for your next challenge. So in that survey, right now, just under 2/3 of our students say, yes, I'm prepared for my next challenge. Transparency, large number of neutrals, but it seems like that if our students are fully prepared, they shouldn't be neutral on whether they are. But we would like to see that rise. We want, again, ultimately get to all, but we need benchmarks along the way to know if we're making progress. Same survey, we also ask, hey, we want you to be like really great problem solvers. So we actually ask them the question, can you offer creative, thoughtful, and effective solutions to challenging problems? And right now, less than 70% of our graduates are saying yes. That means 30% are not saying yes. Again, large neutral component, but how do we make sure that our students leave us feeling like, yeah, I can solve challenging problems? And then the last one is about that, how would we identify this at those other levels? How do we ensure that all of our middle school students, all of our elementary students are also developing a path and a passion and following their interest and seeing relevance in their work every day? So we can kind of think of these big 3 areas as achievement, belonging or wellness, and relevance and meaning in our work, and then we have indicators in each of these areas. So with that, again, those are our top three. Once we are solid on our top three, we can start to really get clear on what are the strategies and what are the things we're actually going to do next year to accomplish these things, and then develop concrete action plans so that we can make sure that we're actually doing all of that. So with that, I will open it to the board to see direction, thoughts, or other things we might need to consider as we continue this process of getting feedback and iterating this plan.
First one about the all students will meet or exceed academic growth and achievement targets. I know Parkway's a part of a larger group looking to go a different path than MAP scores. So how does that come into play with that specific indicator?
Yeah, super great question. Can I backstory that real quick? So we are part of a group, the board approved us to participate in DESE's Success Ready Student Network, which is a group of 53 Missouri school districts that are coming together to try to, the MAP test is kind of bunk. It's like one test, one day of the year, and then you don't get results back for months and months, and students can't use the results, and teachers can't use the results because the students are already gone, and it becomes just man, we're putting all this energy into this one thing. So as part of that work, Parkway specifically is on a work group that is seeking a waiver to try to have multiple tests throughout the year where students and parents and teachers can get actionable results quickly, where they can track student growth over the course of the year, not just like this once a year later where they average it all together, but where we can track that. That wouldn't change to your question is we would still be monitoring student growth and achievement, but we'd be doing it in a way that's more meaningful for kids, more meaningful for the parents, more meaningful for the teachers. And we're really excited about that work, and certainly we hope the waiver gets approved. Even if it does get approved though, it doesn't change the fact that our kids are still gonna have growth targets and they're still gonna have to, achieve. It's just doing it differently in a way that's better than what we have now. So thanks for the question.
The comment, and not to be redundant, but I really like the comprehensiveness of what you're putting in. I know the idea is to be comprehensive, but it seems like you've sliced this into manageable pieces that you can get your head around, that you can focus on. So, well done. And we, as a board, recognize that the state's given you lots more work to do, and I think you're making meaningful work out of the work.
Thank you.
A couple of suggestions that I thought of listening to your presentation. You talked about how to measure students' wellness and the fact that we don't have a tool. We have the mental health screener that we've been using for a couple of years now, very selective opt-in. We go to board conferences and we're sitting in rooms with other boards, and there's a number of them throughout the state that have an opt-out, basically the equivalent process, but it's an opt-out. Is that a way to have better data, have more data that we can track? And then my other comment, or maybe a suggestion, I understand the need for setting attainable goals. Certainly, you've got graduates feeling prepared. Your goal is to increase that from 65 to 75%. I think those measurable goals and truly attainable goals are important. The one that jumped out to me is in your first set of performance indicators, 2nd through 12th, students reading at grade level, and your goal is 80%. I think our goal needs to be 100%. I will fully admit, we're gonna miss someone. Somebody's not gonna make it to get us to 100%. And I realize that if our goal is 80%, that tells me that obviously we're less than 80% now. So if we're 70, if we're 75, and our goal is 80%, I think that's admirable, but I'd appreciate having a goal of everyone being able to reach that level, knowing that here's where we are. We're at 70%, we're at 75, and is it realistic we're gonna be at 100% next year? No. But is it realistic that we will be able to see improvement? That's our goal. But I think it's important that our benchmark or our target be 100%.
because of precisely the what you said, it's unlikely that we would meet it. And my understanding of the goals that we are trying to create, especially for the CSIP, are to be very specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And maybe this goal, this first goal, is 80%. The next goal, 85, 90. The next goal, now we can get to 100 because we figured out how to do that. But to do that in 1 year, I don't see that as attainable.
And as I think Kevin mentioned, the goal is 100%. The measurable attainable for the CSIP is 80. So I mean, he did mention we want 100, but I think to Tiffany's point, I think that would be difficult to put in this particular, in the 1 year.
Yeah,
even
that's
though
a
the
good
goal is, as he mentioned, 100%, and that's all of our goals.
Right.
It's what are we looking at from an attainability? Because if it is 100 and we don't think we'd meet it, we're consistently failing at our goals, which obviously we want 100%, but let's go kind of point by point. So I do agree with Tiffany on that one.
Without commenting on the specific, I do just want to note that in this new process, we are going to be updating the CSIP annually rather than every 5 years, which we had done before. To the point that you just mentioned, Mr. Spector, we have the chance to revise these annually, again, which we didn't have before. We sort of set a 5-year, and we set a 5-year, and our schools built annual plans, but we're going to review this. We envision it as Project Parkway 3.0 right now, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, so that we can continue to ratchet that up. We also know the reality of students is the students for whom it's easy to learn, and you get that big chunk right at the beginning. Then the next group of students, it's more difficult and it requires more effort and energy and resources until you get to the point that you need really intensive support for some students. So we know progressively it will get harder and harder the closer we get to 100 to move that needle, but that will always be the goal. It will always be the goal to get to 100. How do we do that in those steps? And we have the chance as a board and as a leadership team to revise the CSIP annually to reflect our progress to make sure that we're getting there.
Yeah.
And one thing to just tag on to that is I was curious if we couldn't add, I can appreciate the 80%. I had the same initial reaction that Mr. Todd did is why aren't we at 100%, but I also understand the need to want to be attainable in that first year. But couldn't we add some additional, like we do for our fund growth balance, that every year we're moving that up, 2%, 1%, whatever, so that we're just not comfortable with next year it's at 80%. But we also want to see the following year that we're growing at certain percentages so that there is some expectation every year that we're going to see an increase moving toward that 100%. Because what if 1 year something happens and we're slipping down and we didn't meet that 80%? But I think we need to put it black and white, that we've got an expectation that every year we're going to see some growth upward toward that 100%. My other question has to do with a couple of things. The all students reporting being socially, emotionally well. I'm a little concerned with how that's worded, using the word report being well. I mean, anybody can say, yeah, sure, I'm fine. But how do we go deeper with that? Because that's my concern. I don't want to be satisfied that students are just telling us they're socially and emotionally well. We need, a little bit different language, I think, in that particular target there. And then my other item had to do with your numbers on graduation and how are they doing and those percentages. Is it that we're seeing of those responses, they're 65% and it's going up to 70%? So my question is, what is the response rate? And I'm particularly curious about our 2020 grads, and I don't know how old this data is that we're looking at, because I'm concerned about our 2020 grads too. I mean, I'm concerned about all grads, but that particular year, if you were to ask those kids 180 days after how they're doing or what, everybody would be, I'm sure, way lower than 65%. I mean, because I have one. And so, I'm just curious as to what that response rate is.
This will be the only time you ever hear this about a response rate. It's 100%.
Okay, well, that's.
It's 100% because it is a graduation requirement. Every student must take it before they're allowed to, well, I guess technically not every student walks at graduation, but in order to walk at graduation, you're required to complete that survey.
But I thought you said it was 180 days after they graduate.
Yeah, good question. So the state requirement is 180 days after. What we see is, and every district sees the same thing, our response rate at 180 days is about 20%.
Yeah. That's what I'm worried about.
We've offered them iPads and stuff to like respond, and like they still don't respond. So what we do then is we default to the response they gave us right before graduation, which we're allowed to do. So we have a response for every graduate, not necessarily every graduate 180 days after they graduate, but we have a response for every single student who walks across that stage.
So this data is based on those that walked across the stage
Correct.
before they walked across the stage?
Correct.
Unless we want Nathan Dyson to go chase them down, right?
We do chase them down, and I wasn't joking when we said we've offered them iPads to respond in the past, and we did see a little tick up, but it didn't move the needle substantially. But we are required to have a response for every student, which is why we do it as a graduation requirement.
Did you see, and I don't know if you remember any of this, but of the 20% that responded after the 180 days, were those the same same kinds of responses?
Yeah, good question. We would have to have Nathan Tyson run analysis on that just to see what's the comparison. Everybody's kind of looking this way like Nathan's hanging out. Hey, Nathan, what's up? Nathan would have to run that analysis and, figure out, is there a change? What's the difference? And Nathan, did I capture all that information right about that survey?
Yeah, it sounded really good, Kevin. Almost like you're part of the committee.
Yeah, almost like it.
I want to report, I always want to come back to that, all students reporting they'll be well. Jeff made a comment. We do something in Parkway I doubt that other districts in the state are doing, quite honestly. I think Greg Matheson would agree. We're doing something that actually is getting to the heart of the concern we have. We're asking kids who may not be well. And we're working with a group, outside group care and counseling, and we want to have the capacity to be able to deal with the results. So right now, our concern is if we do everybody, we're seeing the students that we're surveying, and you've seen this data, about 40% of the students are saying they need a follow-up. So if we're not able to follow up and we're doing a survey, we may be asking students some questions of which will not be, they need some immediate help. I think what you're seeing, that a lot of districts ask people how they're doing, and ask all of them, but there's not the intensity that we have here in Parkway. So I just want to be clear about what we're doing right now. And to the point that Kevin made, right now we're basically saying, you're not well, or why aren't you well? But to try to get to that point, what is well?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just want to clarify what we're doing here in Parkway.
Yeah.
And to Jeff's point, why aren't we doing everybody? Right now, we're concerned about the capacity to follow up appropriately.
I think that's a good point, because what's the sense in asking this question if we can't do anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a sense of expectation there that if we're going to ask that question, we need to follow through. And so
That's dangerous if we don't.
It's very dangerous if we don't, because then you've got information and then you don't know what to do with it. So, and I know we're still trying to work through that matter of being able to make referrals, because the wait time on being able to get into counseling by any level of provider is an extensive period of time. So as somebody told me, if you even think there's a problem, start getting them in there. So don't wait until it's a crisis. Get them in right away. So I'm glad to see that it's in our performance indicators, though.
There's a saying that said, kids can't learn unless they really are well. So that's an important part of what I think we're dealing with, what we're hearing. And you saw that, when people talk about resilience and endurance and ability those are new words, but we saw it during the pandemic, and we're still seeing the need to really work on those characteristics.
Going back to those those words on your very colorful graph. Do you foresee us revisiting our mission?
An excellent question. The true answer is, I don't know, but if our community says that our 4 Cs are no longer the right words, then we probably need to have that conversation. If we did, I'm going to go way up. If we go back even to the very beginning here, man, who knew I had so many slides? To this, it would be in that third bucket. It would be in that Project Parkway 3.0 work that we want to complete by June of '24, because that would be where we would really revisit those big picture 5-year plus conversations. And what I do know is, as we ask our community about vision, our 4 Cs didn't really pop to the top, where previously they were there. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that's what our community was saying. And here we are all these years later, and just right now, that's not what's showing up. So I think we need to have that conversation. But if we did, it would be in that third part of, okay, now we're really looking at the 5-year and beyond plan.
Kevin, when do we what's our drop dead date for having to have the CSIP submitted?
So we will submit the CSIP to DESE at the beginning of next school year. We typically do it in the month of September. But we want to leave this school year being fully planned for next year. So we can't wait till September. That's why we're bringing what we hope is the final version for your approval in June. And we'll be meeting with all of our school and building leaders that first week of June to work on their building CSIPs that will be aligned to our CSIP. So there's sort of there's two deadlines. One is we need to be fully prepared by the end of the year for what we're planning for next school year. And then we need to meet the external requirement, which would be in September of next school year.
Thank you.
I have one other question about the post-high school surveys that are given to the students. On those first 2 bullets, how are the questions phrased? You said there were a lot of neutrals. Are they phrased in ways that kids would be able to respond positively or negatively?
Yeah, these two. Sorry, wrong one. These two, right? Nope, still not right. Gray. All right. So literally, we ask, do you feel prepared for your next educational challenge? And there's just a scale. There's a strongly agree. There's an agree. There's a disagree. There's a strongly disagree, and there's a neutral.
Can we take neutral out then?
You just poked a decade-long debate between Dr. Tyson and I about that particular thing. We'll keep having that conversation. Part of what I think is going to be a strategy that comes out of this is we need to review all our surveys and make sure we're gathering the right information for our students, whether that's our annual climate surveys in our buildings, or whether it's this survey and making sure that we've got the right information. The second one, I pulled the wording pretty much straight off of it. We said, are you able to offer creative, thoughtful, and effective solutions to challenging problems?
I would probably answer neutral.
Yeah?
Because it's too much to think about, especially right before graduation.
I just wanted to take neutral out.
I know, but.
No, this is the most important thing they're doing right before graduation. What are you talking about? They have nothing else on their mind.
What kind of iPads are we offering them?
But this leads to another thing. I mean, I'm just going to suggest that students who've had that experience in high school, like some of our Spark students who are in the mode of creating, probably have a better chance of having had the experiences. Perhaps a lot of our students just don't have those experiences. They're just like, I don't know. I just haven't had those experiences. So it's another challenge for us to give students those kinds of opportunities and options, whether in high school or going through our entire K-12 program.
We might see a strategy come out around that we want to make sure that every student has the opportunity to face relevant and real-world challenges, and then that would force us to take new actions on that. That's how these things are all connected. If we said, no, that really isn't objective, and I might say neutral, okay, how do we change that so that you actually could answer that and be thoughtful about it? Because that just means we're not doing a good enough job of helping students say, well, I don't know, I've never thought about that. Okay, well, that actually means we're not. That actually means we're not doing that. And so this is how it all drives the actual work, is if you set this objective, then you have to ask, how are we actually going about achieving that objective, which forces us to do specific things in our schools. and where we want the CSIP to really be something that is this is a driving force of how we work in Parkway.
I just remember Governor Parsons, when he was here in the fall and talked to our Spark students, he said to me when he left, he goes, "Oh my gosh, these kids are thoughtful and thinking, and they're problem solvers." And again, they've had that experience, and they were, as he was talking to them, they were so excited to tell him about their projects and their work. So, I mean, I think that's, again, the examples of giving students those opportunities.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and to follow up with Tiffany, are these the right questions to be asking? I know that we want to raise these two up, but if those aren't the right questions, maybe we've got to and maybe they are the right questions, but taking a look at, are there different questions to achieve that goal?
Part of this process, for sure. Thank you.
And to tag on to that, what Dr. Marty said too, are you tracking the types of cohorts of students that are answering these questions? So do we know that these are the Spark kids? Do we know that these are, X, Y, or Z student that have participated in certain types of activities?
I invite Nathan to yell at me, but I believe we have it by student number so we can see everything about those students based on all the other information we have. Thumbs up from Nathan. Yeah, we can do that. We haven't. To your question, do we have that in front of us? We have not. Can we? Yes, we do. Yes, we can.
Because then we can maybe see where there's might be some holes in their experiences to fill those. Some of those kids that are in the equal opportunity schools programs, the AP class, all those different opportunities to be able to hone in on what are we missing, where are we missing it. And again, I figured we would be doing that knowing Nathan, but yeah, thank you.
Great conversation. Thanks for letting me back clean up. Appreciate it.
Thank you and Tiffany as well for all your leadership.
And she says she wishes she could be here.
Yeah, I know we missed her tonight. And Nathan too. I know he's an integral part of this whole process. So thank you all.
I just want to thank the board for at this late hour to have this kind of discussion. Thank you.
If you really want to thank us, you'll cancel the closed session.
All right. So we have no special meeting. So may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all for attending and/or watching remotely. See you next month.